Okay. Welcome everybody. Thank you for watching Bitch for Real podcast. I'm your host, Hella Fly La.
I am Callie, and we have a very special guest here in the middle.
Ameenah from Brooklyn. Okay.
Yes.
Ow.
Very nice to be with
BK
Ameenah
all
tonight.
day.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank
we got
you.
to represent. It's like we're our own country. You know how we do.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you said a whole bunch right there, which is great. Which is great because a lot of people are not honest because
Correct.
social
Yeah.
media is a place where you can be whoever you want to be.
And pretend.
But when people do know you, they like, girl, that ain't your car. That's Jeffrey car. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And stuff like that. But sometimes when people are authentic, that push through too if they know you,
Yeah.
but I can see that on your page knowing the things that I do know about you.
Hmm.
I know you from Brooklyn, so I know I'm gonna get some
Yeah.
Brooklyn stuff. I'm gonna get some Jay-Z songs in the
But-
background.
And I was trying to practice my feminine energy. I was like, I have to work on my voice and be more soft because you know how we so Brooklyn that I forget sometimes. So I was on the phone with Kai yesterday, like, I gotta work on my feminine voice because I know I'm gonna be like, and they're gonna be like, that's why that nigga ain't with you.
Nah, when I think about you, all I hear is I'm from Brooklyn.
Yes.
And that's who you are.
It is truly who I am.
Um, Definitely glad to have you here. You definitely caught my attention by a post that you put up on your Instagram. And I know a lot of people don't share stuff, but you did, and you let me into your DM and hit you up. So, um, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, and tell us how you use your social platform as a platform.
Mhm.
Your social media as a platform.
Yeah, I am Ameenah. I also am Nookie. That is my nickname. It's a name I've carried for a long time. So I know you know me as Nookie more than you know me as Ameenah. But Ameenah is my government name.
Mhm.
So, I use that as well. But I use them, simultaneously. So I can be either of the two at any point in time. It doesn't matter who my friendship group is. It's just my name. I am, who am I? On a lot of levels, I'm a lot of things. I love the fact that I'm a multifaceted human, and that's very important to me. Primarily because I don't really like labels. I think that they box people in and they stifle us from having the ability to be all that we are. So I'm a both and kind of person. When people, try to label me, I'm always like, okay, that's only a part of who I am. So
Right.
for me, in terms of like my social media platform, it's a private page, but it's not a private life,
Mhm.
right? It's
Definitely.
actually my life on display and a lot and being able to be very vulnerable. I feel like my Instagram is a safe space for me because the people that are currently following me are people that I've chosen to let into my space, and
Hmm.
they're people that I trust with my story. Whether they, respect the story or not is totally up to them, but I'm still going to tell my story from my point of view. Uh,
As you should.
Yep.
right. And my daughter, who she has probably one post on her Instagram and she doesn't really post to her page. So she feels like I say too much or I share too much, but I share because I never really feel like my life is a private story. I always feel like I'm an open book. I've always been that kind of person. If you say, have you done that? And I got a story to tell about it, I'm gonna tell you the story about the thing I did. I believe in own your truth. It's been a part of my narrative for a really long time. My name Ameenah, in fact, means trustworthy and loyal. So I think in a lot of ways, I just happen to live up to that.
Hmm.
And yeah, so my social media platform is one of the primary ways that I engage to be able to live out my truth. It's not a daily narrative of my life, but it's moments and glimpses into my life. And
Hmm.
it's not just like, oh, I'm in this happy space. It's also, I'm in this space too, and this is what I'm
Mhm. Mhm.
experiencing, my highs, my lows, and the in
Mhm.
betweens, because those are valuable moments in my life as well. I guess my question to you is, so I know I made a post on Instagram
Mhm.
Hmm.
about my marriage on my anniversary,
Mhm.
which would have been my 15 years of marriage in
Mhm.
relations to my filing my divorce papers.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And that was a sensitive subject matter for
Yeah.
me.
Hmm.
Of course, and part of the reason why I made the decision to do it was because, again, just it was my anniversary, and every anniversary I honor my anniversary date with a post. And when I decided like I was making this decision, I just wanted it to be an opportunity for me to be vulnerable about it, and being able to still honor that day and honor it in the way in which that day was going to play out for me. So yes, I just was like, this is my story, and this is where I am in this story. And I had to go back and read it before this interview just to be like, well, what did I say? What was it that kind of like caught your interest and caught your eye that made you say, I want to know more. I want to invite you to my platform, So that's my question to you. And then I can continue my conversation.
That's such a dope ass question.
Partially, I think, a lot of it in your post too was because it was so vulnerable, and because people are less inclined to want to talk about that type of stuff, especially on social media where everybody has an affinity to try to pretend to be something they're not, or pretend that everything is peachy and rainbows and everything like that. And we all know as human beings that every day is not, rainbows and sunshine. And sometimes things are stormy a little bit, but after storms comes sun.
Yeah.
And I think it was really refreshing to see someone actually be vulnerable in such a soft subject, because people don't like to or don't want to a lot of times admit failure, and especially feeling like failure at relationships, at marriage, or even relationships with your mother or your children, or whatever the case may be. People don't want to admit, that something didn't go right. Something went left, So it was nice to see someone admit that, hey, this portion of my life did not turn out how I thought it would turn out. You know what I mean? And that's okay. Okay to perhaps in my telling this of myself that it may help somebody else that's in a place that I'm in, or maybe coming to that place, some self-realization for somebody. It really was. Because I mean, sure, we're getting people's brunch and their drinks.
Yeah.
And, their trips and stuff like that. And we're getting the fun sides, but nobody really talks about, the other side of life on social media.
Or they're sharing it in a way that's like
just negative.
Right. Negative and demeaning, right? And that's not that could be my story, but it's not my story.
Right.
And that doesn't mean I didn't have negative moments in the middle passage of it all. But I always feel like, as I believe I put in it, like this just like this pure, genuine love that I have towards my spouse, right? And so there was never like the bad times. The good times definitely outweigh the bad moment, right? For me, that's just a moment out of, 15 years, actually 16 years. So it was just a moment, a season, like any other season where you could say, oh, that was a bad winter.
Right.
But that winter doesn't live with me, right? That winter just existed. It had its moment in my life. But
you just remember that winter.
I know that winter. But I don't live that winter every single day. It doesn't take over all the other seasons that have happened in my life. Right. It's just a glimpse into that time. And I wanted to make sure that that was understood, because I know that there are women who, they have like divorce parties and all of these other things to celebrate and honor that. But honestly, I had to go through a long grieving phase of this sort of narrative. One, because being married was never a part of my life plan or trajectory. I love my independence. I'm a Capricorn as well. So if you know anything about Capricorns, we are very
Lord. In your birthday?
December 29th, okay? So we are very much into we about our business, and I went my life about my business. And then about my business life, it consisted of me raising 3 kids. I'm a teen mom. I had my first daughter when I was 16, you know what I'm saying? Finishing my last year in high school. Had my second daughter by the time I was 19, 20. Had my third daughter by the time I was 24, 25, somewhere in between that bracket. And so this was me living a life of being a mother, going to school, getting my degrees, finishing high school, getting a college degree, undergrad, grad again, being a homeowner. So there was a lot of big steps that were me specifically doing as an independent woman. I've had men in my life, evidently, because I have kids.
Mhm.
But the reality is that they were
Right.
I didn't marry any of those people. Those
Mhm, mhm.
relationships were toxic. So when my by the time my spouse came along, and my spouse is a female. um
Before you continue, because I want to
okay,
tell you what caught my attention.
okay,
Um, so basically, hearing you say that, I think that's what resonated with me was the accountability that I
Yes.
I read in your text,
Mhm,
because you could read people text and you could relate, but this resonated. I just didn't
mhm,
relate to it. It resonated because
mhm,
you said some real stuff. Like, I'm not in a space of rejoicing. I'm not in a space of releasing.
mhm.
I'm not in a space. You was honest. I'm forever grateful. Reading it, I can hear, like it was like listening to a dope lyric, a dope
Yeah.
16. It
yeah,
painted a picture. And I was like, I went on this trip like marriage. Ah, something happened. I'm hurting. But
yeah,
you said it, and it's so many people that's going through something, and they won't admit it. I'm like, so
yeah,
Yeah.
I got friends that come to me right now, and they like, I ain't in no relationship, and I'm like, why? Why you not in a relationship? Do you
yeah.
think it's you? And they be like,
Mhm.
oh, it's not me. Then later on, you find out
It's
it's
you.
you. Like, be
Yeah,
honest. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
don't sit here and tell me that you want love, but you won't be honest about what went wrong.
right.
Mhm,
Then you like
mhm.
want me to set you up, but you flawed. So let's have a real conversation first
Yeah.
so we can get to the meat of it. You
Mhm.
Mhm.
know, and it's some people who are scorned
Mhm.
and they need help, and they experiencing like mental health issues
Yeah.
behind that because they not feeling worthy, they
Mhm.
not feeling wanted, they making excuses. And I know some people who have been married and they're not married anymore, and they won't even say like what what
It
went
happened.
wrong, or they
Yeah.
Yeah.
act like they're not hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. No, you can't.
Yeah.
When you marry someone, you supposed to love them. It's
Mhm.
you can't just give it up like it was nothing. Like, be
Yeah.
honest. And you're the first person that was honest.
Mhm.
Like my mother, she wasn't married, so I didn't grow up in marriage. Not depiction of love, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's like mine's is every love movie I ever seen.
Mhm.
So my love looked like Love Jones and this, that, and the third. So when I be like, how much you love me? And she like, a lot. And I'm like, a lot. You supposed to be like the sun and the moon and the stars. It's like every movie, but that's not real life.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
sometimes, marriage can let you down. Marriage can build you up. And it's like, but when it's over, what do you do then?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So just to hear the courage you had to even put it out there and say that you're not ready yet,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was like, you know how many friends need to hear this shit so
Yeah.
they can start living in
Exactly.
their goddamn truth?
Yeah.
As a
And
whole.
one thing people want more than anything in this world, more than a Gucci bag, more than whatever, they want to be loved.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I don't care how rich you are, love is the most important thing. Not that you have to be married, but you want to give love and you want to receive love.
Mhm.
Yes.
So I was like, I really want to know more about this.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
can
what resonated to me, your honesty.
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah. I my my relationship with my spouse was a good relationship for me.
Mhm.
Mhm.
um Outwardly and inwardly, it was a good relationship for me.
Mhm.
It came with its trials, right? Because here I am, this woman who's only dated men in my lifetime, and my spouse and I worked together,
Mhm.
and we were cool,
Mhm.
and very intelligent person. So that my spouse actually was somebody like, if she says something, I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna top that, because that's the Capricorn in me. Like,
Mhm.
how I'm gonna do this up better. So I was
Mhm.
always inspired by her intellect, first and foremost.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And then one day we happened to be at she was getting a tattoo, and it was something about that sleeve being up, the tattoo happening, and I was like, oh shit.
Look at that arm. That's a good arm.
There was my interest was peaked. My interest was so peaked that I was just like, damn, how I can make up a fake email address to just flirt, out, because I can't openly flirt. At least I didn't think I could openly flirt, but I just was like, how much? How
Did
much?
you did you know that your spouse
Oh,
or
my spouse is straight up gay.
your coworker at the time was interested in females?
Oh yes, it's very evident who she
Did
is as a
did
person.
your spouse know that you was?
Interested in her?
Yeah,
No, not at
at
the
the
time.
time.
They
Okay,
had
so
no
okay, I
idea.
was trying to figure out
Yeah, no
why
idea,
you
no
was trying to
idea.
figure
Yeah.
out
Oh
how
yeah, this
you
is
wanted
why
to
I
come
was
out.
trying to figure out
Okay.
how I'm gonna make myself known, but not making myself known, right? Because
Mhm.
I wasn't really sure like what I wanted to pursue, but there was a heavy attract. It was like I just want a one night opportunity to experience this. To be very frank, okay, it was a body count, all right.
Mhm.
And so as a moment came in time when we were able to be together, we had a friendship group and we would go away, and at one point in time it was supposed to be four of us that went away, but it ended up being two of us, just the two of us. This was around
That sound
Christmas.
like a Whitney Houston song.
Right.
Boy, you got to was really cheap.
It was Christmas. It was the day after Christmas. Actually, we took a trip up to Mohegan Sun, and like I said, the other two people who were supposed to come couldn't go. So we was in a room, and
Look at
she was
God.
going through her own little breakup about whatever. I'm not even interested in any of that because the Capricorn
I
in
still
me,
like the honesty.
the Capricorn in me was like, all right, I'm gonna slide in her bed. Like I had a whole plan how this was going to play itself out because
Mhm.
experience this. Okay, this is what I come for. This is really why I'm here.
Right.
And it just so happened that it played out differently, but it played out well. We played a game of truth or dare, and them dares led to a lot of things. That then just kept my level of curiosity peaked and wanted to get to
Right.
know her better, and we became inseparable. Like when I say we became inseparable
From Mohegan Sun.
from Mohegan Sun. Now, mind you, I was in a relationship with somebody else at the time, but not really. I was
Mhm.
in a tryst, is what I'll call it, because I wasn't really dealing with the person. The person was more
Mhm.
into me than I was into them, and I was very honest about
Trisk.
it
This
too.
is a new term for me.
Oh, it's like it's
a little,
just
a little fling.
a
Yeah.
playing, like
Yes.
whatever people want to call it.
There go
This is
Callie making me seem like
this
how you don't
this
know.
this
No, I'm not.
16 years ago language.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
but the person that I was dealing with
Mhm.
was a former co-worker of both of ours,
Okay.
and so we both had a connection to her
Mm-hmm.
as well. But the person, you know it was an experience for me, but it wasn't mutual, right? It was more like you digging me, all right, I'm gonna let you dig me, but I wasn't really digging you, and especially from a perspective of like wanting to see myself with you. And that's a whole nother conversation. So
Right.
anyway, fast forward, I wanted to experience my spouse. We experienced each other. We became inseparable. That grew into a relationship. That relationship turned into an engagement of asking me to be, my spouse's wife in the summer of 2008. And
So how long y'all was together before y'all got engaged?
mm, 2000, and so at the end of 2006 was when we got
Okay.
away. So I would say all of 2007 we were seeing
Mhm.
each other, and then got engaged in 2008.
Wow.
um, and we happened to be in Massachusetts at the time, which was one of the only states that was honoring same-sex marriages.
Okay.
And I had worked out there that summer, and so on the way as summer was coming to a close, she was like, let's just do it. And I was like, do what? And then she was like, get married. And I was like, okay. That was literally the proposal. And
Right.
then after that, though, like she took all the steps to make sure that we set the date, involve my kids, ask my parents. Like I made her do all of the shit that needs to be done if you want my hand in marriage. And
Did that go over smooth?
uh the panic between her and my dad was real. But between the both
Okay.
of them, sweating and stuttering was real. My father is Nation of Islam man.
Mhm.
So my dating a female was new to them,
Mhm.
to everybody in my life,
Mhm.
but that was like, this is the person that I'm digging, and it is what it is. And so I
Mhm.
treated my relationship like I treat any other relationship. This my dude. This
Mhm.
who I'm with. Respect that. You got a
Mm-hmm.
problem with it. You got a problem with me. Period. Point blank. What your opinion is don't matter. And people have plenty of opinions. But
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm the type of person like I'm that girl. That's
Mm-hmm.
what my dude. And you can't
Mm-hmm.
disrespect my dude because if you disrespect my dude, then you disrespected me, sort of situation. If you don't like it,
Right.
back away from it. Figure out your life. Figure out your narrative. Whatever that's going to be for you. But this is my person. And that's literally how I felt. Even like if my parents, whatever you feel is your feelings. It's not going to change
Right.
me. It's not
It's
going
your
to stop.
life.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to pander and bow down to
That's
you
bold.
in
That's
exchange
bold.
for what I want to experience and go through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we had a real, it was a real moment, for my mother, my father, for everybody. And so when it was time to have the ceremony, it was just me and my daughters and two of my close friends.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So they wasn't on board at first.
my parents, I just didn't invite them. It wasn't for them. My
Mm-hmm.
ceremony literally was for me. And it was like to my children, I wanted them to be present because those are my daughters. And like I said, I was a single
Mm-hmm.
mom for the majority of my life. So I want you to be able to experience this with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was all that really mattered in that
Got you.
moment
Okay.
was my kids. That was
Mm-hmm.
all that really mattered in that moment was my children. Um, Fast forward years later, when New York became legal, we did have a 3-year anniversary party.
Okay.
And by now we had a bigger party, like a real celebration among family and friends to
Mm-hmm.
be
Mm-hmm.
able to celebrate that. And even that circle, it was like 50 of us, but it was meant to be like very still personal. Like if you're a part of this story, then you can be welcomed in this space because I don't
Right.
want your energy. If your energy is still negative, if you're not
So it
about,
grew bigger
if
than
you're,
you thought,
right, if your love is not an exchange or a reflection of the love I have for my person, like you're not welcome in this space. And so
basically.
our invitations didn't even have plus ones unless your plus one was a part of our life.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know my love story, you can't be in my space where love is about to exude and be about its business.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it
Now I
wasn't.
could now I'm understanding more why your posts come across the way they do because it's like respected or rejected.
Yeah,
They ain't no fear here.
no,
It is what it is.
not at all. It's like, okay, this is the way it's going down. That's the way it's going down.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And like I said, so it was a good like our life. We lived together, and I left my house in Brooklyn, moved in with her, moved in with two of my kids, two out of three, and it was a different lifestyle for me, going from
You
a
moved
big.
from Brooklyn or a different part of Brooklyn?
No, I moved from Brooklyn to Manhattan.
That's love.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
That's
okay,
love.
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Cause when I look up places to go in Brooklyn, it'd be like Fulton Street, the
yeah,
Brooklyn
no.
Bridge, and then it's like a little picture of you.
Yeah. um, I worked. You know, I worked in schools in the field of education.
Mhm.
And through my marriage, I ended up being in an administrative role. So my spouse and I worked together for a very, very long time.
Mhm.
And I
How was
wanted,
that? How's that having a marriage and working together for a long time?
oh, it was a secret marriage. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a secret
Okay, so
relationship,
you didn't tell nobody at work.
right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
that, so when
I
we
can
started,
only imagine
yeah, it
you
was,
being at work and hearing stories, and you got to act like you. I
it was
did
Don't
that. I've
care.
me.
been in that
Okay.
situation.
We stayed in the same circle of friends, but our friends didn't even know that we were dealing with
Wow.
each other. So when we got together, the biggest thing I was like is like, damn, I want to talk about you like I talk about anybody else. So
Mm-hmm.
my spouse was given a alias. Like I said, well, what can I call you so that I could talk about you? Because I have to talk about you. You can't be in a relationship with somebody and not talk
And they
about
be like,
somebody.
"Girl, you
Right.
you glowing. Where you
Right,
was this
exactly.
weekend?"
They
What's
see
going on? Yeah.
it. You see the energy, so I know you're going to ask about it. So we came up with an
Mm-hmm.
alias. That alias was my spouse's name. For up until the day when I said we are no longer going to be together, I'm taking it back. And I
Mm-hmm.
say that because I feel like names are so valuable, right?
Mhm.
And they have meaning. And I feel like when I gave my spouse this name became a part of the character that she became.
Mm-hmm.
But the essence of who she is who she ended up being all over again. And so I felt like you were no longer able to be called by this name. I need to call you by the name I once knew you as, because that's who your true identity is. And you
Mm.
lived up to this person that we created for a very, very long time, and you did your best. But the true essence of who you are or was is still very evident And so you can have that who you are, but you can't keep this part of who you were because I gave you that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't
A
cap.
Capricorn she is.
Um, so working together was very much like we was just about our business. People didn't know. People didn't know
Mhm.
for a very long time until we told our friendship circle. Like we had to
Mhm.
tell them, and they were like, "Oh, are
And was
y'all
she always okay with that?
of the what?"
Of being like
Can't tell anybody,
Oh
can't
yeah,
tell
that was her thing.
anybody.
Oh, that was for her protection. It wasn't for me.
Okay.
If it was
Okay.
up to me, everybody would have known. I wouldn't even care. But the way she lives her life, like I always
Mhm.
tell her, I said, I don't know who on which America Most Wanted poster you on, but when I found out, I'm turning you in because that's how
Right.
like, we live totally different kind of lifestyles. Where I'm open. My spouse is very much closed, so much closed. Like, and I
Is she
think
considered like an introvert?
an introvert, an only child, grew up in a
Oh,
Catholic, so she deals with a lot of sort of like Catholic regret or
Is
Catholic
she a
baggage.
Cancer?
No, she's not. She's an Aries, but she carries a lot of that Catholic guilt with her.
Okay.
That in a lot of
I do
ways, like
too.
she questions her sexuality because it was frowned upon in the religious place that she was raised in. Like my father, even though he's Nation of Islam and he believe in Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve or whatever, I don't it didn't matter to me. Like it
Right.
didn't
Right.
matter to me. So as she used to always say, who you jump out on now? Because I'm telling everybody. I'm telling everybody. I'm like I said, I'm treating my love like I treat any other love. I'm not hiding it. I'm not good with that. Like that part of me is
Right.
not, I'm not good with that. But I had to learn to respect the fact that like this was uh a part of her DNA, right? It was
Mhm.
it was how she was, and I had to accept like who I am going to be in this relationship and who you're going to be are going to be two different people when it comes to certain things. And one of
Mhm.
those things is I'm gonna be here like this, hi, and you're going to be like, not necessarily letting everybody into that space. And I'm the total opposite when it comes to that. So she was very cool with us having this sort of relationship, and so we let it. It was what it was, up until it
Right.
didn't have to be that anymore. Because at this point I was planning birthday parties and all of this other stuff for you, and it's like, I know they can't be like, oh, you just the best friend that's doing all of this. No, I'm not just the
Right.
best friend anymore. I'm the
Right.
wife at the end of
Right.
the day. So
Right.
but yeah, so that's the beginning of that story. I want to say that I think that our working together was really good for us though, because
Mhm.
we enjoy one another. We enjoy one another's company. We had a shift that ended up being in two separate working spaces, and I honestly think that a lot of that began to be the outward spiral of the marriage, not
Mhm.
from my perspective, but as I look back at it and trying to always assess like, well, what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that us no longer working together kind of like put a wedge in a way that was not like, it was like I was forming new friendship groups. I was
Mhm.
having new people in my environment, new people that I was in relationship to, that she had no understanding of who these people were.
Mm-hmm.
And so like not having understanding of those people kind of like created this sort of narrative of I don't want to call it jealousy, but that's the easiest word to
Right.
call
I
it,
was about to say that.
of
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
insecurity around these
Mm-hmm.
new friendships
Is it
that you
because
have.
y'all was together all the time? You can
I think
You
almost
so.
were.
know what
Yeah.
each other was doing and was
Right.
thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So now
Mm,
that you're talking to
yeah.
new people, it's like, what are they feeding you? What are they
Right.
telling you? Because
Yeah.
a
It's
person
just a
so private like that is like, I know
yeah.
what's going on. It's like I know what you eating. I know why that's
Yeah.
making you sick. But if somebody else is there, it's like you're being
Yeah.
poisoned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right. It's like it was a level of insecurity that I think
Hmm.
happened. And the way my time changed, like before you can be around me in my same time, like 8 hours of a day, you still knew you were in my energy space. Now you're not in my energy space for 8 hours. I'm coming home, I'm still taking up time doing these other things that I need to do for work, because of course I'm consumed by this workload that I'm taking care of. And you're a part of the narrative, but you're not a full part of the narrative. And so in my reflection of having to understand me, I have finally come to a place where I recognize, and not just in my marriage, but in my children too, like my having to be a single parent came with a lot of hardships and a lot of things that I did to survive because that was the thing to do. I worked 3 jobs, and
Mm.
my children ran the household in my absence. You know what I'm saying? And that was the norm, but it's not normal.
Yeah.
So I always tell them, please go to therapy. I'm okay with that. If you talk about me, do what you got to do to heal.
Yeah.
That's what's most important to me. And so yeah, like things that fell at the wayside, and I had to realize that like who I came into the relationship as was still a very much a bigger part of me. And I never really, like you said, like what is your depiction of marriage? I didn't really have an image of what that is, and not because my parents aren't married. My parents are married and still married to this day, but it also wasn't something that I had to think about because I didn't care about it. It wasn't something that was plan for my life. Like I wasn't that little girl when they say, "Oh, every little girl dreams of the day she's going to get married." I was never that little girl who dreamt of the day
Right.
that she was going to get married. It was never a part of my narrative, and from my perspective. So when I got married, it was like, okay, it's just dating on a new scale, right? It's dating to
Mhm.
this capacity now. And I'm still, you met me, I was doing da 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 da. So why would I think that da 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 is an interference at any
Mm-hmm.
point in time in our relationship? And so it wasn't so much the doing it that was the interference. It was the distance of us not doing it together that I believe began to
Right.
put the wedge. But I didn't know that there was a wedge forming,
Mm.
right? Because in my head, I
Is it
was,
because you were so busy with other things that you
but
didn't
also
put your
because I
focus
didn't
on
think,
it?
no, I didn't, there was nothing, I didn't feel like there was nothing that changed in my world, right? From my
Mm-hmm.
perspective. And I will say that to people like, I was in a happy marriage while my spouse wasn't in a happy marriage.
Mm.
And because I was viewing it through the lens of still receiving almost everything that I was always receiving, not realizing that they may not have been receiving everything that they were used to receiving. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Right.
So, but it took a lot of moments of me stepping back to reflect on that. And, it was a
Did
hundred.
you realize this? Did you realize this then, or you realized this
Oh, this
after?
is a now. This is a after the fact of trying to understand and like listening, because we went to therapy once we got to the place of like this marriage was coming apart. We went
Mm-hmm.
to therapy twice. The first time we went to therapy, it was with a Caucasian female who was cool, but it didn't feel relatable.
Mm-hmm.
The second time we went, it was a woman of color, so it felt a little bit more relatable. But at this point, our marriage was already in crisis as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Right.
And so in my post, there is like I didn't come out and say what happened.
Mm-hmm.
There's like the hints of what happened, right?
Right.
Because most people, most of the people in our close circle know what happened
Mm-hmm.
because it was something that we had to share and tell them, and it broke a lot of people's heart. Like
Mm-hmm.
our dissolving marriage was like people were like, why do I feel like my parents are breaking up?
Mm-hmm.
And I had other people, I had to start consoling people as
Mm-hmm.
we were telling them about this, what was happening, because for them it was just like, wait, what? Not you two,
Mm-hmm.
because of like who we were in our marriage to one another outwardly on a lot of levels, that is what people, that's how they associated our lives together.
Mm-hmm.
So what pretty much became a part of the relationship was, my spouse entered into another relationship with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a few things happened that were like prerequisites to that. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the prerequisites was like my spouse said to me, probably on a number of occasions, like, I'm not happy, right? And
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, you're not happy. What you want me to do about it? You
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't understand what it is that I need to do to make you happy. If I'm not happy, go find somebody else to make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know those was my words.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the time came that somebody else was put the proposal on the table to make them happy,
Mm-hmm.
my spouse, said to me, well, I'm going to say my spouse entered into the relationship and then came to me and said, I want to talk to you about something.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay. So my spouse, was forthcoming and said, there's a person who's expressed some interest in me. I think I'm interested in them. I want to see, whatever, whatever. And I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm, I'm not going to stop you from doing that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
My friends go, girl, what is wrong with you? Why wouldn't you say, nah, nigga, you can't, da 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 da. And I say this. In my very first relationship with my oldest daughter's father, he cheated on me. When I finally came out of that relationship, the thing that I understood and knew was you could love two people at one time.
Mhm.
And that is just my own personal feeling. So one thing I will always say to them is if that is what you want to do, be honest with me. If you
Mhm.
want to see someone else, be honest with me and give me the choice. Because what I'm tired of y'all doing is taking away the choice from me. Like if you want
Taking
to be
away
in
the
a
option.
right, if you
Yeah.
want to be in a relationship with somebody, give me the choice to say, all right, I'm gonna stay in this relationship with you, even if you're in this relationship with this other person. I'm
Mhm.
gonna be here for you. That is just one act that you're gonna go do with somebody. It has nothing to do with everything else that you and I are gonna experience with each other. So that's what you want to do because I'm not giving it to you. Go get what you're gonna get. I'll be here when you come back, and we'll resume our regular scheduled programming.
Mhm.
Um, so when I got to the point of realizing like the way my daughter's father, my daughter's father loved me and loved the other girl, it just was like I'm not even going to try to say he didn't love her because that would be stupid of me to be like, oh, she was just this. No, this nigga really went hard for this chick the same way he went hard for me on a lot of levels. You know, and I think I was put first on a lot of levels on a lot of things because I had his kids. But at the
Mhm.
same time, he ain't never stopped.
Mhm.
He ain't never stopped. So it got to be something. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It has to be something that has to be there. And I'm in a marriage, like I let all of these other dudes who I wasn't in no marriages with have these sort of narratives and relationships. So if I'm in this marriage and this is what you say you want to explore and do, and I'm recognizing that, one, I'm not even thinking that this is going to go as far as it went because I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm not an insecure, jealous female, and not because I'm like a 10, but I'm very much like I know who I am. I know what I
Hmm.
bring to the table. So in my head, I've never really been in a position to feel like, oh my God, I'm intimidated by another female or any of those things have never played out in my life. And so I was like, okay, well, here's my rule, right? You want to see this person, da da da. These are the things that I'm asking of you. Boom, boom, boom. I laid down
So you
my
saying if you could be that blunt and honest with me, I need you to respect.
yeah. I need you to
Correct.
respect,
As long as you can respect this,
and
then
it's
I
perfectly
can
legal.
learn to be okay.
Right.
Mhm.
And again, still not thinking that this is going far because why would it?
And let me interject real quick.
Mhm.
So do you feel like your first relationship when you said your baby's father, do you think because you went through that it was kind of like learned behavior?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think that it's literally based on it's not oh I want to be cheated on, I was accepting being cheated on. Person has the capacity to love more than one person.
And
So
that's some real shit for your ass because people can't deal with
yeah,
because I try to say that I'm a realist, not even knowing the capacity of what a realist is, but I say I'm a realist because I understand shit. I'm not staying in a box.
yeah,
I feel that you can love multiple people. You know, should you do it at the same time? Maybe not. Can you do it
right,
at the same time? Yes. But I feel like as long as you're honest with me, I could deal with a lot of shit.
yeah,
I hate
yeah.
when people lie because it's like you close it, not only do you close off the truth, you make me feel like you think I'm stupid.
Right, that part. And that's the thing. And that's the only thing that I asked was like, just be honest with me. Right. And so as the relationship was like, in the beginning, it was just like, oh, okay, you went on a date. Okay, I know you went on a date. And then it just became like there was like these consistent sort of narratives that were happening. And still in my head, I'm just like, okay, and I don't know who this person is. Then when I finally get a glimpse of who this person is, I was like, nah, she
Did you
don't even
know the
fit the
person?
yeah. hmm I know the person.
Did you
She
feel
know me.
disrespected?
I felt yes. I felt I think my first reaction was really nah. This is a bogus. I happened to like was straightening up on a printer was a picture of this chick. So I came across the picture and I'm like, this nigga trying to set me up and pretend that this is the girl he seeing. There's no
Mhm,
way in hell that this is who he dealing with. Like,
mhm,
nah, no way. Because I've been in a space with this person. Like, we're not firsthand friends. We have her cousin and I were co-workers, and my spouse, because we were all co-workers, were familiar
mhm.
with each other. So we've been in the same room together. But she was the type of chick, like she was always around her cousin, but I couldn't tell you her name. That's how
Right.
miscellaneous she was in that space. So when I
Mhm.
saw this picture, I was like, nah, this can't be it. This got to be a joke. And I literally was like, this got to be a joke, right? And my
Mhm.
spouse was like, frazzled at me even seeing the picture because they said they didn't know they left it there, whatever. Okay,
Mhm.
fine. So now I'm kind of like, this can't be real. That's all I kept
Right.
saying is this can't be real. This can't be real. This has to be a ploy. This has to be something to throw me off the scent. Like it got to be better than that. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I'm not gonna say I'm not trying to put a person down, but I'm
It
saying
doesn't matter. This your feeling.
that
Shit.
can't
Yeah.
possibly be what
I
you
know you ain't
decided.
fucking with that nigga. You got to
Right.
do
Like what is
better.
up with you?
Talk your shit. You from Brooklyn.
So fast forward the relationship, whatever, it kept going. And I was like, all right. But I'm still in my head. So the thing that when I asked, like, what is it that you're looking for? Oh, I just need somebody who's gonna be kind to me. It was those things, right? It was never like a sexual, it just was kindness. So again, me, who I am, who I was, my Capricorn energy, my Brooklyn energy, it's a lot of masculine energy.
Mhm.
And so much so that when we used to be together, people be like, again, if they had to put a label on me, they'd be like, oh, you are, whatever
Are
kind of
you
get
the aggressive?
aggressive. And I was just like, yeah, actually, I'm not. I'm a whole straight up female. Like, and I'll tell you people like, I'm not gay. And I'll say that to them. And they're like, what do you
Mhm.
mean? Like, I love my spouse. Right.
Right.
And so then when someone asked me one time, well, what sort of European sexual? I said, well, what is that? And I had to learn the language of how
Mhm.
they try to put me, whatever that label needs to be for me. And that, pansexual, somebody who just loves a person that they love. And that means that I can love you. I can love this person. I don't have any sort of like true narrative. Like I'm only attracted to men. I'm only attracted to women. I'm attracted to men and women. It just was like, I'm attracted to that person.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right. So there's no real attraction to women, but that person is who I'm attracted to.
Okay.
So anyway, fast forward, just all of my energy, that's like the thing that you're asking me for, is to be kind. Now I'm kind, I'm not nice.
Mhm.
And that's a distinction that people will definitely say, even about New Yorkers. Like New Yorkers, we are the type of people that's like, why is your tire? Why you let your tire get flat? But we still fixing it with you because we kind.
Exactly.
You
Mhm.
know what I mean? A nice
That's a
person
big
is like,
misconception. Is the
right.
way is it's
We
not
come the
what
come
I
off
say.
is
It's my tone.
Mhm.
right. But my actions is still
But we
doing
mean
all of the
well.
right. It's
Mhm.
doing all the loving things. Whereas a nice person is like, oh my God, your tire is broken, and keep going about it. Like they acknowledge this thing, but they didn't do anything to help you. There was no
Mhm.
act of kindness. There was nothing that followed that statement. I
Mhm.
feel like I was a kind person, but my spouse was like, you're not nice, you're not kind. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right. I don't know what to do about that, because I don't know what to do about that, right? Because it's not a part of who I've ever had to think about being, really. And even in like my school environment as a leadership member, I still carried a certain air. I wasn't nasty. I'm not a nasty person. I still was kind, loving, all of those things. Receptive, people were receptive to me, but you saw that I was about my business. You know,
Mhm.
I'm not
Mhm.
playing no games with you. You fully
Mhm.
aware, like, let me not cross her, because that might mean something that we might not
But
all
it's
be
nothing
comfortable
wrong with
with
being
settling
a
up.
strong
Assertive.
woman.
It's
Right.
no, there's not.
Nothing, except that it infringed upon my marriage in a
Mhm.
way that was unpredictable to me, right? So that was the part that really was the awakening piece. So I'm still thinking, okay, well, I guess that's what that girl got to offer.
So let me just ask you a question. So, okay, but you've been who you are forever.
Forever.
Mhm.
Ever,
You know,
forever.
your spouse met you this way, your spouse married you this way, your spouse been
Hmm.
with you for years.
Mhm.
Yes.
So, because you're so aggressive and you're asking me now to be kinder and nicer, it's kind of asking me to tone down me.
Hmm.
So,
Mhm.
I'm saying sometimes people be like, I want you to be nice, but sometimes people really want coddling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I understand it, because sometimes I'll be like, "You're not nice to me. You don't say the things that I need." And it's not that you're not nice and you're not kind, but I want my ego stroked.
Yeah. And that's a poor trait that I don't
Mhm.
have. I'm not good.
Right.
and I've noticed that like I am not good at ego stroking. I
But
am not a person.
nobody wants to admit that. Nobody
Yeah.
want
Oh,
people be like, "You're I need you to be nice." No, no, be honest. I want you to be coddling. I want you to
yeah,
hold me and do all the
yeah.
baby boo
Um,
boo stuff. So we
I'm
call it
not,
nice, but you
but
want to be coddling.
I'm affectionate. I'm
Mhm.
loving. I am not an ego.
A
I
who?
am an ego stroker. I'm
Mhm.
not an ego stroker, and I've realized that in my life that I don't do well at stroking people's egos, and I don't schmooze well in my work life. Like I'm not a schmoozer. I don't. I even have a hard time
Sure.
struggle with the word so
Yeah.
much that I was like, wait, what? You want me to schmooze? No, I'm
Mhm.
not. I'm not good at that. Like
Mhm.
this is what this needs to be.
I could just
24/7.
imagine an argument with Schmooge. I'm not a fucking Schmooger.
But yeah, so that was
Was that her love language? Is that something that she expressed to you that she needed before you knew you didn't provide it? Because I'm saying, how can you give something if you didn't know that's what you
right.
needed? Like, I feel like I can accept if I say, "Hey," and I would be blunt, "Hey, I like oral. I like oral, oral, oral," and
Mhm.
you just not an oral person.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So if I went out there and did that, can I come back and say, "Well, I told you a million times that I wanted this."
Right.
And even though it's wrong, I could justify it by saying, "I told you a million times." So
Yeah.
were you told a million times, kind, kind, kind? Or were you just told at the time, it's because you're not kind?
Right. So I will say that if I have to think about like how many times I was told, I'm sure that it was probably mentioned, but it didn't resonate. I didn't hear it, right? Until it was the time that I needed to hear it. And that's what I picked up when we were in therapy. It was like, but I've said this to you such and such and such and such amount of times, and your response was never the thing that I needed you to how I needed you to respond. And
Mhm.
so that was
And
like
that's
my
real.
way to be like, and that's why I think I even put in a post like, I hope to be able to hear. If I should ever love again, I hope to be able to hear what a person is communicating to me,
Mhm.
because that is the part that I know was vital that I missed. I
Mhm.
That
miss
is so
I miss hearing.
vital that you say that.
Mhm.
That is so vital that you say, and I don't mean to cut you off, but
No,
that's
the
key.
conversation.
That's key right now to just a lot. The fact that you saying, "I wish that I could hear it," because people don't hear it.
Hmm.
You know, because even in my own relationship, I say so many things that is repetitive, it's redundant, that it's like, can you shut the fuck up? And when I hear that, it hurts me because I'm not the type of person that like to talk so much. Well, let me not say that because I'm a fucking talker. But I mean, talk about the same thing over and over again that I know it's irritating you. And I'm like, I wouldn't have to say it a million times if you paid attention.
Mhm.
And if I got to go back and irritate you, it irritates me that you're irritated because you're not paying attention. And it
Yeah,
don't even be the big things.
it's
It's
a
a
little
little
thing.
thing, but
Mhm.
it's becoming like a molehill.
Yeah.
Like, you do not hear me. You hear everything else, but you don't
Hmm.
hear these little things that matter so much. And I really feel like, what the hell is wrong that
Yeah.
you can't hear me?
Hmm.
And as strong of a person I am, when I look around and see these things that I said a million times and you resent me for them, but you're not listening to me, I feel like breaking down, crying
Yeah.
like a little bitch. I'll be like, "You did that shit again." And then I can't even be quiet. I've turned into like Mother Dearest. I'll be looking like, "You didn't do this shit.
Yeah.
Why?" And it's like, people be like, "You don't really have any problems." And I'm like, "You may feel like I don't,
Yeah.
but it's the little things over and over again that is so
Mhm.
necessary to hear your partner. Just don't talk, just don't communicate, but
Yeah.
hear."
Yeah.
I
And
just
that
wanted to touch on that.
yeah, and that was a valuable lesson that I had picked up on too late. You know what I mean? And because the whole time when I was probably hearing it, I was receiving it like my spouse is a very like wakes up disgruntled.
Mhm.
right? I wake up, I'm in a good mood, happy
Wait,
that they're
how can a person that want kindness wake up
and
disgruntled?
that was always my question. But
Come
what
on now, dear.
I know, and that was my main question. Like, well, how, what like, but what I there's so much unpacking that I did in my life over these past
Mm-hmm.
2 years that have allowed me to be like, in relationships, we are a mirror reflection of all of our spouse's flaws.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they get to see themselves through you in a way, through a lens of like, so my not being kind was just a reflection of who she really was and not being kind or not being nice.
Say
And
that.
she knew who she was. So when I wasn't giving like
That deserved a poetry snap.
not giving that extra thing that would change her, like how can I change the optimism of somebody who's not nice if they see me in this moment as not being nice? But really it was just who she was in her head and how she perceived me. So
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I would always
People
say
will have a whole, and I'm sorry, there I go
no,
cutting you off
it's a
again.
conversation, it's okay.
People will have a whole picture of you
Hmm.
in their head and you standing right in front of them.
Yeah.
Like, I could be talking like the, and you don't hear nothing I'm saying. You hear, you motherfucker.
Yeah.
You are
Hmm.
just the worst piece of shit. And I'm just like, can you pick that up?
Yeah.
And so I say things like, I don't even, and I be, and I joke a lot, but I be so serious when I say stuff like, I cannot compete with your mind. I
No.
cannot compete with how you see me.
Hmm.
I am loving. I love you. I care. I want to do the best that I can, but you do not like something about me and I can't change it.
Yeah.
You have to change it in your head so you can see me.
Everything is open for interpretation.
Mhm.
And so where I am in my life now is like I want my intent and my impact to be equal. I
Mhm.
don't never want you to be confused about my intention. I want the impact of my intention to always be received. So, part of my healing journey has had to be about like tapping into my feminine energy. And that doesn't mean that I'm not still an assertive female, but it's me being more mindful and
Mhm.
understanding how to nurture relationships differently
Mhm.
so that I can be able to hear you when you speak,
Mhm.
so that I can receive whatever it is that you're giving to me without me feeling like I now need to be on the defensive about it or
Mhm.
to validate it or to invalidate it or to do battle with you over what you're telling me, but trying to understand it from your perspective is the narrative. Because I know that the way I speak, no matter when I became nicer, my spouse literally begged me to go back to being who I was because she didn't understand this
I
person.
need a drink.
And he was like, to her, now that person was being manipulating, or it was not real. I was
Cause
like, but
now
this
you come across phony.
right, but you asked me to soften. So now I do these things because you asked me to. And then you're questioning it because you don't know if you can trust that it's real and genuine. But I'm trying to save my marriage. So this is what you're asking me for. I'm gonna give you what you're asking for. But then when I give it to you, you got a problem with this. And I'm just like, oh, now you want me to go back to being who I was because you knew that that's who I was, and it was nothing really. I'm not gonna say it was nothing wrong with it, but you knew that it was authentic, right? And you didn't have to question if I loved you or if this was a gimmick. You knew it was never a gimmick. It was never a gimmick. It may not have come off in a loving way that you wanted to, but it was never a gimmick. It was never fake. But now when I'm softer, gentler, kinder, you're hesitant because you're like, well, who is this? Who is this person? And I'm like, this is the person you wanted me to be. This is who you
Mhm.
asked me to be. Um,
So you kind of felt damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I did, but I still was there because I wanted my marriage. Like I loved my spouse. And that
So
was
you want to get divorced?
no, I did not want to get divorced. What became very evident over time was that I like that relationship began to take precedence over my relationship. And that was one of the biggest sort of like shifts that I did not have to experience in any other times of me being in relationships with other dudes. Like I was still priority. Wifey was
Mm-hmm.
still number one. And I wasn't even, you know what I mean? I was wifey. That shit ain't real.
Mm-hmm.
I was still number one. When I went to ask, or like there was a moment in time I asked the question, and it was the insinuation of, are y'all being physical with each other?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a true adamant denouncement of, no, I would never. Right? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. But what was also happening in my life is that my ancestors was in my head humming tunes, them good old OJ's blues music songs, like you ain't no good, he up to no good. Like they were, when I would tell you, I would wake up with songs in my head of these sort of narratives, and I really wasn't in tune enough to know what was really happening, except like I'm just waking up and I'm humming these songs, and none of these songs is good. They all about cheating, doing this and doing that.
Yeah.
I'm still waking up looking at this person next to me with love though, right? So I'm just like, well, what is this? What's happening? What's happening? And I would have to like distance myself to go, to cry, to be. And then one day, and I'm not this person, but one day I was just like, I need to really know what's going on.
Because again, you're strong. You're okay with this. You set your boundaries. You ask
I
for
thought my boundaries were
honesty.
being honored. Yep. Hmm.
So for you to finally start crying, you was finally breaking down. You was
Yeah.
breaking.
I was, yes. I
Mhm.
was finally I was getting to the point, not finally, but I got to
Is
the
it
point.
because you found out it was some physicality, or is because you feel like you was being lied to?
Oh, it's the lie.
It's the lie.
Oh, it's the lie. Oh, it's the lie. It's the
It's
lie.
the lie.
It was the lie. It was the lie because
You didn't have
I
to.
believed you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, if that's the thing that's happening, then when I ask you if that's the thing that's happening, say yes, that's the thing that's happening. Don't say no, that's not the thing that's happening. Because something deep in me was just like, that is not true.
Mm-hmm.
And so I picked up the phone, and there's a code in the phone. And I promise you, it was, I tell, like, she said, how did you get in my phone? I said, God,
Mm-hmm.
because there was a code. I put the code in, it didn't work. I put the code in again, it didn't work. I did something else, that phone opened up. I scared myself when the phone opened up,
Mm-hmm.
because that was not the expectation of me. The expectation is that the phone would be like, you tried one too many times, so you can't get in. The
Mm-hmm.
phone said, I said,
Mm-hmm.
oh shit.
The ancestors said,
The
Mm-hmm.
way my whole body raced in that moment, because now I got to get to
right.
the information. I don't
Mm-hmm.
ever come in your phone, so I can't even. I gotta scroll to find out where's pictures, where's text. Da, 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 da. You know, my phone's format is different than your phone format, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, oh shit, I'm in. So when I get in, I get to a place where I get to see, and what I see is like,
Mm-hmm.
so now my spouse in the bathroom and came out and was like, something told me you was in my phone. But how
Mm-hmm.
you get in my phone? And I was just like, God.
Mm-hmm.
So are you done? I said, yeah, and handed it back. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not done. Because now I want to ask you questions about X, Y, and Z. Because what
Mm-hmm.
you've been telling me has not been true. Because these pictures are saying da 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 da, totally opposite than what you have been telling me all this time. So you've been lying to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that part hurt. We tussled over the phone. We tussled to the point where, she called the authorities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, New York, we don't like the authorities. So
Mm-hmm.
that
So
was
this is a real tussle.
a real
Mm-hmm.
tussle. And so then there was like this level of fear that she now had, right? At this point, nobody in
So
my
this is the
family
first time y'all ever been in
physical,
a
physical. Yeah.
physical. Okay.
Out of all these years in our marriage, yes. That doesn't mean we haven't had heated arguments. We've had heated
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
arguments, but there was never no physical moments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At this point in time,
So but
nobody in
y'all
my
both
family.
black, people. We do know not to call the authorities.
Mm-hmm.
There was no nobody in my family knew what was happening in my
Okay.
marriage. None of my friends really knew what was happening in my marriage until that moment,
So
because my
now it's
spouse
devastating.
because now my spouse called my mom to be like, she's bugging, da 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 da, yada yada yada. My mother's on the phone trying nookie, and I don't. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So now they know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they come to the house, they're like, oh my, they when my friend said she running, she see the police, she's like, oh shit, the police, we gotta hurry up and get upstairs, because they know me. They know like, this
Mm-hmm.
bitch is going to jail today because she crazy. She a little
Right.
crazy. And they ask what happened, and I'm telling them what happened. And I admittedly say, to be very fair, my spouse told me she had an interest in someone else, and I told her it was okay to pursue the relationship. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna lie and say oh, that nigga cheated on me. No, I gave what she likes to say, you gave me permission. And I say, yes, but you cheated before I gave you permission. You was in a relationship before I gave you permission. You just wanted to know if
But
it was
what
wrong.
did you give permission to exactly? Permission
The
to hang
experience.
out with
The,
somebody else?
I gave, well, yeah, like you want to explore this. So we never really talked about what explore meant. I only gave my parameters of what are my parameters. Like, right.
Was
So,
any of your
but
parameters nothing physical?
that was my assumption because that's not why you said you was going out. You wasn't stepping out for physicality. That was never an issue in our relationship.
You were
So,
stepping out to for some companionship.
right, some kindness, some nicety, right?
Because
Kindness.
people set those boundaries. That's why we got unicorns and
Right,
all
all
this
of this
other stuff.
exactly. So,
So I can
fast
understand what you mean when you say I consented to this, but I didn't consent to
To
your
that.
cheating. So you
Yeah.
cheated
yeah,
on me.
Hmm.
right. Even more importantly, what I learned, so as the relationship progressed, with the other person, and now, and I called the other person on some bitch. When I catch you, I'm gonna da da da. We go through the rigmarole of what I'm gonna
Hmm.
do, blah blah blah. Now you can have this nigga. I had that moment. I reverted back to her because I know her. I know her very well,
Hmm.
and it was the back and forth off and on. Okay, let's go to therapy, blah, 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 blah. There was the thoughts of the matter of like, I'm never going to leave you for nobody else. I want my marriage, da, da, da. Those things that were being said to me that I'm believing and or wanting to believe, right, to be true, because why wouldn't I believe them to be true? So there were many sleepless nights, many, many, many moments of whatever's that happens. And like I said, at some point, it just began to shift where I was no longer being the priority in this relationship.
Right.
And that part was like, oh shit, I'm no longer the priority in this relationship. And I like my Nookie, who I call Nookie, is she's my fighter.
Hmm.
Hmm.
She was on all defense. She was ready to tear everything and everyone apart at any point in time. Like if she was triggered, she like, I'm jumping. I'm your savior. That's my armor. She's coming. She's coming to do battle. She's ready to do battle. She's leaving. I told you all the time. She's at the fight before I could even know she's at the fight.
Right.
And she go
So
to
at
battle.
this at
And she
this
go battle.
point, you feel scorn.
Hmm.
I, yes. When I was hurting my spouse, and I was hurting my spouse when we were physical, I and I say this to her, I was like, I was not, you are hurt, but you are nowhere near as hurt as you could have been.
Hmm.
And I didn't say that like as a badge of honor to be like, nigga, I could have polarized you, but I could have.
Hmm.
But
I
I,
did get some Ike
there
Turner from
was,
that.
there was still, what it was is just like, even in that moment, like, I love you. Like, I'm not even gonna, it was
Do
not
you
no
like I
real like,
can?
right. It
Yeah.
wasn't no real like bang bang bang. It was more like, tussle, a loop, a pulling on some hair,
That great.
holding
Yeah,
your
sometimes you
arm,
be grabbing up on the
holding
like,
your arm tight,
see me,
You
whatever
got a little
motherfucker.
yoked up. You got a little
situation.
yoked
But it
up.
wasn't like,
Are we justifying
let
it?
me let me let me
I'm
let me
not
dash.
justifying it. She just
No,
saying that she just yoked her up a little bit. That's it. She
but I
shouldn't.
know what I could have done. That is one regrettable moment in my life.
Hmm.
The amount of pain I inflicted on you which was not, and I was justifying it for a lot of years, like, but I put my hands on her and I hurt her, and
Hmm.
she's damaged by that, right? So she was damaged by this, and I had to reconcile that with myself, but also from a point of like letting her know, like, I don't wear that as a badge of honor.
Like, so you saying that you regret that and you have to apologize and accept that, but people forget the mental abuse that you went through.
Hmm.
So your reaction showed up physically, so that's physical abuse.
Mm-hmm.
But you was also mentally abused as far as being lied to.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that anyone justifies the other, but I feel like I'm gonna admit my flaws, but can you admit some shit too?
The
It
moment
unpacks a whole bunch of shit.
it does. In the moment, like the fight it was literally like, I would say, like, my spouse would be like, well, you put your hands on me, and I would be like, yes, but don't make it seem like I put like I am a person who's been attacking and fighting you all these years. Like,
Like, what did you want me to do? Like,
don't
Right.
create a narrative of me as if I was this jealous broad who went into your phone. Like, nigga, I ain't been touching your phone in years. I don't touch your phone. The one time I touched your phone was to plan a surprise party for you. You understand what I'm saying? To get names and numbers so that people could come to your surprise party. I'm literally not that chick to be like, let me go through this nigga phone. That's too much energy for me personally. Personally, too much energy for me. So I'm like, please stop trying to create me to be like a monster. Was my act monstrous? Yes. Yes, it was. But am I a monster? No, because that's not our normal day narrative. Like, this was an exception to who we are in this relationship. This is not the norm for who we are in this
right.
relationship. And
Like, if you recognize my heart, you recognize that I'm not kind. Recognize my rage too.
exactly. And I am so deeply regrettable about it.
Hmm.
And and knowing that, like, how I hurt you, because your pain, even in this moment, is still very significant to me as your spouse. It is not the place that I want you to be in. It is not what I want you to experience. Um, and throughout the time when we were going through this, it started in 2020, like August of 2020, and it carried on into 2021. And it just was like, what the hell is happening? You know what I mean? Like, this is this is unreal to me. That we're still in this space of not reconciling our marriage. And and then you'll say, well, I'm not I
Were you guys still living together
we're still living together. Yes, we were still living together. And
while
then
she was in a
uh,
relationship?
we were still living together. We were in the
I
same.
just don't understand how people didn't think I might yoke you up a couple of times when you walk out that goddamn door.
No, we didn't do that. Wasn't you so silly? No, that wasn't it. There was a moment where she didn't return home one night, and I was upset because she was supposed to. And when she did, and I packed up her shit and I put it out and I took it to the girl's door. And and then she was like, well, how you find out where she lived? I said, oh, you told me how I could find out. You told me you could Google where anybody lived, because when I asked you if that girl ever been in my house, you said no, she never been to the house, but you never said she never been, like, she don't know where we live. Like, so in other words, she has the capacity to be able to sneak up or roll up on me. And not that I think that she will, but the point is that you gave her enough access to know where we live. For whatever reason, you thought that that was smart, and you don't put me on alert. So you said, "Oh, well, how you know she ain't just Google it or look it up?" Da, 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 da. And I was just like, "Oh, you could do that." Because again,
But
I'm,
why is it that this person
I'm not
got that
even
much
that chick.
respect?
And that
Yeah.
those are all, like, I'm not even that chick to be like, oh, let me find, like, that was never even a thought in my head up until that moment where I was like, oh, you want this nigga? Now you can have this nigga, right? Because that
Mhm.
was Nookie was on full flex, like, oh yeah, I'm on 100 right now. And 100 means you gotta go.
It just seems like that person is being more protected than you.
Yeah.
And that is exactly that's what I'm saying. This is these reality checks of, like, how life was shifting for me. But at the
Mhm.
same time, it was like, I love my spouse. I don't know how to not, where I have not rationalized yet in my head at that point in time. I have not come to terms with the fact that you don't love me
Mm-hmm.
the way I love you, or this marriage is not what it once was. I still have not rationalized that. I still see you as the person that I love. That when you're in pain, when you hurting, and even when it's at the hand of another female, I'm still like, I want to hold you. I want to hug you. I want to love you. I want to lay with you. I want you to be okay. Like, you being okay was a big part of of this. And one of the reasons why I just was like, if that's the thing that's making you happy in this moment, then that's the thing that's making you happy in this moment. I always used to say, listen, when you cheating, number one, you're supposed to come home happier. You're supposed to be a better person when you walk through this door, because the person on the other end was supposed to treat you so damn good that when you walked in this
Give
door,
you all the things you said you
Yeah.
was missing.
Right.
however my flaws mean nothing to you
Right.
when you walk back through these doors. So she is supporting you tremendously because you are still seeing all my flaws. Fast forward, long story short, there was the put out, and then immediately behind it was like, well, you can have the key to come back. I think that was a good exit strategy for her, an unanticipated one, but it was still a good one for her in a lot of ways. So she called.
So you put her out, but gave her out.
Right. So she lived, got her own apartment, and was renting a room from somebody, apartment rather, from somebody else, or whatever the case may be, but still under this impression of, like, I'm not having company, because I couldn't even know where she lived. But I know that that girl know where you live. I know that you're playing house with that chick, but you telling me no, it's not that. Da, 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 da. So I'm still like, okay, because again, you lied to me. But all right, if you say it ain't this, it is what it is. 2022 comes and I go, I'm leaving home. Now I'm leaving.
Yes.
I
It's
get up,
time.
I pack my bags. A lot of things are happening in my world. My job is coming to an end. My marriage is coming to the end. My place where I live is coming to an end. And I'm like, okay. So, and people were like, are you crazy? Like my spouse in particular, are you giving up your salary to go because of your morals? And that's why I was like, yo, you keep forgetting I stand on my morals 10 toes down all the time.
This is who I am.
And that is what people need. That's the one thing I think that you fail to recognize about who I am. Because if you understood that from the beginning, you would understand that when I say to you, oh, I'm okay with you. If this is the relationship you want to have and you want to be in a marriage with me and I'm willing to accept that, you don't think that I'm telling you the truth because you are not a moral person. I stand on my word. And so we're two different people in this point in time where I'm like, if I could tell you that I can live with that, as long as I'm getting these things, then there's nothing wrong with you being able to give me those things, except that you don't believe it because you can't give me what you couldn't. I can't give you in return what you are willing to give me. I said, I'm not asking you for what you are getting. I'm not interested in nobody else. I just want a marriage and I want my marriage with you. I just want my relationship and I want my relationship with you. I want as much quality time as you give the next person.
Mhm.
In Islam, you could have as many wives as you could afford. You know what I'm saying? And if you could afford to be da 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 to her, then you could afford to be X, Y, and Z to me. So if you could balance the act, nigga, balance the act. That's all I'm asking for is my straight up reciprocity in all of this at the end of the day. Not to be like, why the fuck do I feel like I'm the mistress? Why the fuck do I feel like I'm the second fiddle at this point in time?
I'm definitely learning a lot today
So
because what I'm getting from you, because any other time I probably would have sat here and been like, yeah, you was tripping, you was bugging. I would never. And I learned a long time ago being in that relationship that I was in to never say never. All you ever had to do to love me was respect my principles because that's all I ever did was respect your principles.
yeah.
I respected you when you was just mine. I respected you when you wanted to do some other shit, but you lied, so you
That
fucked up on
negates
the
everything.
principles. I couldn't do a lot of the stuff that you did. But if I understand the principles about people, then maybe I can see that.
Mhm.
And I think it takes a strong person to set those boundaries. So yeah, don't call me fucking crazy. Just say that you are not as strong as I am or you don't have the capacity to do the stuff that I do. So don't say, "Oh, you can't love me." You just don't have it in you. I have it
Mhm.
in me so much for the both of us.
Yeah.
Right. No,
So what was the final straw?
no, actually, the final straw was my spouse said, I'm going to come back home, but we can't live together. And I said, oh, okay. And at first, I was about to be like, I'm your wife. I'm staying here. Da, 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 da. And then I said, okay, I'll leave. And that was it. And I said that because at this point, like I said, what I recognized what was happening in my life was transitions. I'm learning like my marriage is coming apart and then we can no longer even coexist. Like you want to come back home. This is your place. You no longer want to pay rent otherwhere. You want to be able to
Wait,
be,
wait, wait. That's not home. You
yeah, well,
can't come home and not live with me and not pay rent. Just say you want to visit.
no, no, no. She wants to come back to her. So the apartment was hers when I moved. Remember, I left Brooklyn and moved to where,
Oh.
yeah. So it was just like
Oh, so
your,
she wanted to come back home and you
yes,
move.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Selfish. I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah, it's okay.
All
Yes.
right, my bad.
But I didn't have the capacity to fight. At this point, I just accepted whatever I said to God. Okay, I surrender. Whatever it is that you are doing in my life, I'm gonna surrender over to it and let it be your will.
Mhm.
I don't have the capacity to fight anymore, right? I was
Mhm.
literally I was drained. And there were moments and times when I
You
was
fought the good goddamn fight.
and there was
Yeah.
moments and times where I was seeing myself and I was like, Nookie got too much power,
Mhm.
right? She had too much power over my actions that I just was like, wow.
So
And
you felt like Nookie was being too strong.
she was
Mhm.
being too everything.
Mhm.
Not every day, right? But in those moments when she who she is, like she fight and she fight alone. So my
Mhm.
friends tell me the story the next day. You know how some people go, "Oh, girl, I'm getting ready to go." No, I'm the next day be like, I'm telling you to survive the story. of what I did
Mhm.
before. And they looking like, "Are you crazy?" And I'm like, I am. Is
Mhm.
something wrong with you? Yes. I love my husband.
Mhm.
Mhm.
This is how this is the part where I write like my fight was misunderstood. You don't get to write how I play the game. If this is
Right.
the you don't get to write how my defense.
Mhm.
You don't get to decide that for me. I get to decide that for me.
Mhm.
And there were moments when my defense mechanisms was like, "Yo, you are crazy," and I'm like, "Girl, reel it in." But like I said, Nookie be like, "Nah, I'm good. We about to fuck some shit up." I had to like release a lot of who she was because my defense mechanisms they be on 100.
So was
Mhm.
this self-healing or did you go to counseling?
This was self healing. This
This
was
is all self-healing.
me being in a lot of sister circles,
Mhm.
me being in spaces with sacred women, me
Mhm.
being in just community and seeking enlightenment, seeking release, me understanding, like, they say shadow work and understanding what that meant.
Mhm.
Mhm.
First time I heard about shadow work, I was in a workshop by one of my good friends, one of my baby girls, and in the shadow work, the funny thing is like, and if you have these qualities and check them off without me knowing what shadow work was, and I'm checking them off, and I'm like, yeah, and I got this and that, and they were like, yeah, that's your shadow, and I'm like,
Mhm.
what you mean? Like, I love all of these aspects of me,
You know I'm writing this stuff down.
Mhm.
but it's like, how do you get to your light? How do you now identify your light? And
Mhm.
so that's when I had to start recognizing, like, oh, and that's how like Nookie has a name, and I know who Nookie is. This part of me. She's
Mhm.
always been that part of me. She's been that part that has always been my defense mechanism. And even on
Mhm.
my Instagram page, I have a story about my name, Ameenah, Linda, and Nookie. Like Ameenah shows up in my professional world. Nookie shows
Mhm.
shit get real and rough. That's when Nookie show up. And Linda is who I'm becoming. She is my feminine energy that I'm evolving into, and who's like, let me help you
Mhm.
different, be a little less this and a lot more of that. And not that
Mhm.
we
And I
can't coexist, because we do coexist. It's a trifecta. But
Mhm.
I think that's dope.
who's leading in this narrative? Like, where do you want this narrative to go now?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's been a beautiful dance.
Mhm.
I've learned a lot. I had to unpack a lot, and I had to reconcile a lot. Like you said, the
Mhm.
accountability piece had to be
Yes.
big for me, because the thing I had to say to myself is like, I want to I want to be able to heal, not because I want someone else to love me again in this lifetime, but I want to be able to heal because I want to know that my loving energy is so damn big that those little moments in time when Nookie show up, you're like, that's not the norm.
Mhm.
Versus the other way of you asking me to go back to being that person. You know what I'm saying? I want
Mhm.
when I give you a glimpse of, I gave you had Nookie and you got a glimpse of Linda. You had Ameenah,
That's appreciated too.
right? And you had a
Mhm. Mhm.
but when you had a glimpse of Linda, you was like, I don't know that person. I wanted
Mhm.
to, like, who Linda is, and when you see Nookie, you're like, oh, well, who's that?
Mhm.
I want it to be the total reverse of that. You know what I mean? I want her to no longer feel like I have to be in defense mode when it comes to most parts of my life. I want to learn how to advocate for myself and for my love differently, in a way that you could receive it, that you don't make it I'm a monster. Like my God, like I want my God like to always shine. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And like that's a part of my everyday narrative on my page. I wake up every morning, it's me and my Bible, and it's me and God, and it's me and gospel for hours, because that's just the way I love to center myself. So in moments when you see this and you think, well, that was always a part of it too. Like, well, you supposed to be so godly. And I'm like, yeah, I am, but I'm also this. Like, don't
Mhm.
Right.
miss that. Like, I keep on telling you, nigga, I'm multifaceted. I
Mhm.
tell you all the time, my best parables in the Bible is when Jesus flips the tables. Like, are you kidding me?
Mhm.
At the end of the day, like, what? We could
I
Mhm.
get
think I think this is real. I think this
Yeah.
is real because people don't recognize all their layers. And it seems like you peeled back your layers and you see that you have three sides to you. Like you said,
Mhm.
Amina, Nookie, and Linda. And people
Mhm.
don't identify with that change.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I see people going from being cool one minute and then the next minute they just fall off the earth and they just justify it as I'm feeling depressed. I get that.
Mhm.
Depression is real.
Yes.
but you're going through something that you're not identifying with because you're afraid of knowing that something shift because you didn't even accept or took accountability when you should have.
Yeah.
And I think if people can do what you're doing, then they could come out of that darkness.
Yeah. It was my low this year. Um,
Mhm.
you know, every day was I came up like this and I worked, but every night I went back in and I went back to the mud. And that's like that was my year. That was my low this year. And I tell people it was
This year 23?
no. 23 ain't my low this year. 2021 was my low this year. I'm
Okay.
Mhm.
just going through the shit and coming back
Right.
up every day and still functioning.
Mhm.
Just being able to
And that ain't easy. That's not easy to do
that's
because
functioning in my space, watching the person I love being brokenhearted or whatever they're
and
experiencing.
people go through this all the time, but they
Yep.
don't they don't get out of it like you. Like sadly to say,
Yeah,
some people commit suicide,
yeah,
Mhm.
some people
Mhm.
turn to drugs,
Mhm.
some people just remain abusive all
yeah.
day long.
My mental health is important to me.
Yes.
Really,
Mhm.
so there were moments when my dark moments, I had to sit and stop and say, like, to God, am I cognizant?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Am I even really still here? My mindset, right? Because I don't know what the flip may be. And I want to
Mhm.
know in this moment, am I still functioning in
Mhm.
the way in which I know I am functioning, or has my mind got the best of me?
Mhm.
So for me to want to not, like, I don't smoke and do drugs because I want to have this all the time. But anyway, I was away. I did a healing journey. And this was a solo road trip from New York to California, and then back to New York again. And then I was in Virginia. So Virginia was like one of my last planned trips of like my healing journey that I was going on. I was doing a 14-day water fast. And I was sitting in the room and I said to God, because these journeys have been about me and God, and being able to now just I'm literally every day surrendering to whatever
Right.
you I need to do. And I said, yeah, so where do I go now? What I and when as our marriage was falling apart, I had moved into the second bedroom. We had a second bedroom. I moved into the second
Right.
bedroom. It became my queendom. And she became my safe space in the house, right? For my spouse. And I say, listen, I have to come home.
Mhm.
We have a debate about it. I said, you can say what you want to say. God said,
Mhm.
I gotta come home.
Uh-huh. Right.
So after going through some heavy dialogue back and forth about it, I returned home. So my
Mm.
spouse was like, I'm probably not gonna be here that often, because I don't feel safe. Okay, whatever. I'm not here.
Mhm.
At this point, my whole energy has now changed, right? I'm no
Mhm.
longer fighting for my marriage. I'm just following God's lead on whatever God said is my lead.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I pretty much went into my room. The vision that was in my head that was put before me is the way I set my room up. And I just lived my life in that space for a very long
Mhm.
time. I went back home in June, I want to say June of 2022.
Mhm.
And just during that time, I was just on my journey, continued my healing journey. My spouse would be in and out. We would barely speak to each other. People would like, how could you live like that? And I'm like, truth be told, it was the most solitude I had in a very long time. And
Mhm.
other people invited me, you could come and stay with me. My mother, my sisters, my friends, you could come and stay with me. And I was like, no,
Mhm.
this this believe it or not, this place of being here provides me a level of sanity, because there was no more interference of trying to save a marriage. It
Mhm.
was just me existing in this place for whatever purpose God wanted me to exist. And
'Cause it's been home.
right,
Yeah.
but during that time, we had two encounters with each other, verbal conversations that
Mhm.
sometimes got escalated.
Mhm.
Each of those moments, I recognized so much more different in me. And then I
Mhm.
had that aha moment, like, this ninja is my litmus test to
Mhm.
see how much I've grown. Now, will I say, like, did I stop loving my husband? No. I still love my husband at this point in
Mhm.
time. But was I fighting for my marriage? I was not fighting for my marriage. But I was
Mhm.
willing to coexist. I was willing to coexist. That was a thing that I was willing to do, that I'm willing to live here, because the thing about who we still were is that we were still good people to each other. in a lot of ways, despite, this interruption in our marriage. That was my partner. You know what I mean? We had vows that I still was honoring and living in accordance to. So it was just like, okay, maybe we can just coexist with each other and be like, two people who are married. It's not far fetched. A lot of people who are married stay in the household for whatever reasons that they stay in the household. And remind you, I wasn't working, so a girl ain't have no real income either to be able to do, a whole lot of other things. Like, let me
To keep it real.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't need you. No, I need to be here. This is where I'm going to be. And not that nobody else was again, people were willing to open their door to me, but this was also my place of solitude. Home be out. And then said to me, I haven't had a chance to heal. So now you're seeing me in my healing levels, but you are witnessing it. And now you're angered by my healing. And so you're like, I haven't had a chance to heal. And I'm just like, well, I was gone for like 5 months. Right? I had a chance to heal. But then I had to take a step back and go, because this was distracted by other stuff. And so he wasn't really living in the pain of
Right. You was
separating.
busy. You was occupied.
Right. So now maybe that's different in your life. I don't know, because we're not having conversations about your life at all. But something shift now. You feel like you can't even heal because my presence doesn't allow you to do that. So we had to have another conversation about me leaving home. And so then I ended up back in Brooklyn. So I'm back in Brooklyn currently. I've been back in Brooklyn, I think, since February of this year. And still, like, patiently still waiting to be like, maybe now that I'm out the house, they'll recognize da 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 da. And that never was happening. So mentally, I began to say, okay, I recognize that this dude don't love me. Physically, my body only knows my spouse. So I'm still like, that's all I want to know. That's all. When I say in my post, my mind, heart, and body are ready and aligned, my body finally was like, okay, we no longer want to fantasize about that either. And that's when it became the point of like, okay, all three are now aligned. Now, when I left the house in February, I did already say I want to file for divorce, right? I did want to do that, but it was to protect myself. It wasn't because I was ready. It was just like out of protection of like, I don't see you as a person who loves me. So I no longer want to be in a contract with you because I don't want you having governance over my life at any point in time about anything. And when you're married to someone, you know that they have, that's the difference, right? You are now the governor of my life. If something should happen to me, you are that person.
Wait. That's in a marriage decree?
Yes, it's the
well, if for some reason like you become incapacitated or some reason, you'd be making the decision like, hey, pull the plug on her. I don't want her, to be on the breathing machine. Take it off, and then that's it.
I need to get
that
handbook.
Somebody you're not, you know what I mean? Like your family has no say, nothing. They could just come in and be like, sorry,
right?
If your kids are screaming or whatever else, too bad, because I'm the wife.
So maybe us having that paper, that contractual agreement written in stone gave us a safety net to being able to be protectors to one another. So now I no longer feel that you're my protector. Why would I want to be married to you? You know what I mean? Was my question. So when I left home, I was like, well, I'm leaving, da 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 da, and this is it. And I'm filing under adultery because that's what happened. Because again, a personal principle, a personal morals. I don't want this paper to say anything other than what it needs to say at the end of the day. In the next few days, by then it was October 11th, and I just was like, you know what better time than now? Let's just bring this full circle. So the full circle moment was me making the decision on that day to go to the courts to put the paperwork in, and then to be able to put the post up about this moment that I was having, because it was a moment,
So October 11th was when y'all got married?
We got married October 11th, 2008.
That's crazy.
So I was just like, let's open and close this chapter on the same day. Now, being a woman of principle is important to me, but at the same time, I had to stop and say, what is the end result? What is it that you want?
Right.
And so even if you can't get this paper to say what it say, you know the truth. You know the reality of it all. So even if your divorce paper come back and say the terms of agreements is some irreverent differences or something like that, like you already know what the reality of this is. But my spouse will be like, I didn't leave you for another person. And I'll say, you may feel that you didn't leave me for another person, but I know that before this other person came in, our marriage was different. Even when you were not in your happiest moments, you were still in this marriage. So while you want to say you didn't leave me for another person, the only way I can process that is through the lens of what really happened. And there's nothing that you can do to remove that factor. You know what I mean? Because other than that, you didn't have the courage to step away from this marriage when you quote unquote weren't happy in the interim. When you had a safety net, you jumped because you knew you had something else to jump to. And so that made it comfortable for you. And like I told him, I said, there are two women in this world who cheat. There are women who cheat with another person who go in and be like, they know their place. They know what they come into this relation for and they get the benefit. And then there are women who come in to take you from a person. I said, a person wanted to take you and you wanted to be taken. And, it was painful. It was painful. I'm proud of, I'm surprised I haven't cried during this point in time, but this is the other thing. The emotional attachment to the story is there. And that's when you know you're healed too, right?
Yes.
When you don't have the emotional attachment, I can tell the story without feeling the pain. I can see the story, but I don't have a connection to the hurt that happened in that moment, right? I don't have a connection to the anger that I was experiencing. I know I experienced it. I know it was genuine. I know it was real. I know it was authentic, but I know that it does not reside in me anymore. And which it once resided in me. So I can tell the story and still not shed a tear. And if I shed a tear, it's just at the idea, like, I loved my husband.
Right.
In a way that was so deep that I was still in so much agony about the idea of, like, we don't have my marriage. But I accept, like, God said, we're shifting. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't want to, but okay, I have to. And so it's my story.
We definitely appreciate it because if it helps one person, it's helped enough. You know what I mean? And that was, it's a hell of a story. And again, I hope it helps someone, stand in their truth.
First and foremost, it's some real shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
No matter who agrees or understand it, nobody's gonna get out of it the way you did. But there's gonna be a lot of people that do exactly what you did. But knowing how you did it and how you got over it, now you got a blueprint. Now you got a map to be like, it is okay to feel this way. Because some people give up on love because they don't want to feel silly. They don't want to be taken advantage of. Your story, you went through it all, as you should. You fought for love to the highest fucking capacity. Some people let friends be like, bitch, leave.
Exactly.
And you didn't listen to nobody. You followed your heart through the thick and the thin. And you took accountability.
And none of my friends were saying leave, which was the crazy part. Because they would, when I tell you, like, people were so attached to our love story that everybody was in the same forgiving space that I was in, everybody else was into. And it just was like, and I had to ask them sometimes, like, well, have y'all forgotten what happened? And they're like, no, but.
Yeah, because people see the niceness of a person, but again, you still on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
you can say a whole bunch, but you don't know what I went through. But the fact that you came out of it on your own timing, at least you can say you made the right decision. You can't say I should have never listened to
so and so. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just glad you came out this with your head up.
Yeah. Me too.
Acknowledging that you're flawed, acknowledging that you're about to be this beautiful, is it Linda?
Yes.
This beautiful Linda.
Yes.
And I just commend that because some people don't make it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like that it transcends.
Some people literally commit suicide or lose themselves.
Yeah.
I've had those moments of thinking, like, do I want to?
Right. It's so easy to give up, and it's hard to fight, and you fought.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I do hope the people that watch this or hear about it or however it go, know that it's okay to
Yeah.
do it your way.
Mm-hmm.
Just remember to breathe, man, and don't be afraid to love to the highest capacity. Like, don't cut off your love because somebody says so, or how it may make you feel, because love is worth fighting for.
It
Yeah.
is. And even if that love is loving yourself. So,
Mhm.
love yourself enough through all of this. I think we have a hard time sometimes as people, like, pouring into yourself, loving yourself for fear of coming off selfish. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to love yourself first. You can't pour from an empty cup. And I like that this conversation transcend, whatever sexuality anybody may feel. It doesn't necessarily just speak to this audience or that audience. It's not for a box. It's for any and everybody that may be feeling these feelings or having this situation.
Yeah.
Anybody can relate to it. So
Mm-hmm.
I know that it'll help someone and touch someone
Yeah,
enough
and
to.
be honest.
Yeah.
Be honest.
Yes.
Like, you can
It's
respect all things if it's honest.
Yeah.
God, like, what is the assignment? What do
Hmm.
you have for me next? And trying to understand that. So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that looks like from a work perspective right now.
Right.
I've been enjoying my temporary gigs and my consulting because it's bringing me joy to just be in spaces temporarily.
Hmm.
I'm still on my healing and wellness journey, which is the most
Mm-hmm.
valuable thing to me. Um, and then as far as love is concerned, like I've been living my life in the same level of fidelity of my marriage. And let me tell you, the next person that comes has to fit the imagination that's beyond what
I
I've.
was gonna ask that. Do you think you're gonna be grabbing them red flags? Like, fuck you, fuck you. 'Cause I just had a podcast recently when I was like, when I came out of that last relationship, I was grabbing red flags that wasn't even red.
Right. And that's the
Hmm.
thing. I don't want to do that. Right. I don't want
Right.
to be that
I
person.
was literally like, why you looking at me? Red flag.
Yeah.
Why you making pancakes and burning them on the edges? Red flag.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to be a person who's looking out for red flags, but I do only speak about like I said in my post, I want somebody who's going to have the courage to be honest, right? Because
Hmm.
that's important to me. I want somebody who is going to be on a wellness journey too. I want
Hmm.
somebody that I
Mm-hmm.
can experience that life with, like, because that's how much value that has in my life right now. Like to just be well, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. I want I've been traveling and I want to just be able to still have traveling journeys and traveling experiences with somebody that allows me to do that. And I can still have a stream of income that allows me that flexibility to be able to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
it it looks like like I tell people, it's a dream of something that has the potential to be unimaginable, but definitely attainable
Hmm.
in, in some fashion.
Definitely.
If I should, whoever that human is, because people, the question that I get is the $1,000,000. Well, will you date men or women again? Will you date men again, or are you going to date women? And I say, I don't have the answer to that. I'm
Hmm.
going to love whatever it is that is destined for me, the same way that marriage was destined for. It's had its benefits to my life in many
Right.
ways. I would never say, oh my God, I wasted these amount of years. Like, no, these were valuable years to my life. And I just pray
Right.
that the person that enters my life adds just as much value to my life so that it is, a love story that I could tell again. If I have to tell it again, we'll see.
But I
Awesome.
definitely appreciate you telling it to
I
us and talking
appreciate
with
you.
us.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I think it's important that people do, check out your page. Do you mind leaving your handle?
I mean, they're gonna have to ask permission, as you know, but it's Ameenah.
We look, if it's one thing we learned, it's permission.
Yes.
Yes, it's Ameenah_73 on my Gmail.
Okay.
But I
Awesome.
do have an open page.
Hmm.
It's for One Clean Slate, which was I started it to talk about my traveling journeys and my journey.
Hmm.
4_1 KLENSLAY 8, the number 8_1.
Okay.
And it's for One Clean Slate. One does these things. So that's pretty much how that came about.
Okay.
peeks into my traveling journey and healing journey.
All right.
Yes.
So we'll put that under there to make sure that, whoever wants to follow along on healing, on traveling, that they may go to your page and follow.
Yeah, that's a small glimpse into that part of the story. Yeah.
Awesome.
So any advice you have to give someone that's going through this right now?
I think the biggest advice I can give someone is to assess themselves
Mm-hmm.
so that you can see, before, I don't want to say it's before it's too late, because, it might not be what you need to be in anymore. So I don't want to use that word, but I think that anybody going through this, to just take a step back at them and look at themselves as much as they're looking at the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can begin to hear what the other person is saying, and hoping that computes in a way that allows you to be like, got it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
I think you awesome.
Yes.
I think you dope.
Thank you. God is dope.
And I have a new respect for your social media page, because I know it's authentic and it's genuine. Everything means something.
Yes.
Everything. And thank you
Absolutely.
for taking a moment to read it, because I know some people are like, that's too long, I'm not reading that.
Right.
I appreciated the number of people that actually read it and wrote back to me. I was like, oh. Again, I don't even post for the response. I don't know if people are going to respond or not respond. It's like irrelevant to me in a lot of ways. But I was deeply touched by the number of people who did respond, and I felt deeply loved in the responses that I did get. And I appreciate you for wanting to hear my story and thinking that it was a story worth being told, and for making the ask. And so I appreciate you for inviting me both of you, for inviting me to the table to have this open and honest conversation with you. So thank you.
No, absolutely. And I know, this is going to help someone. It's going to be worthwhile. It's going to start and spark conversation, ideas, all that stuff in people. So we really do appreciate you, making yourself vulnerable and laying yourself bare, opening up for people to be able to perhaps start their healing journey.
Yes, that's the best. So necessary. So necessary.
Absolutely.
That was actually dope.
What you thought?
Next time.